Hey everyone, welcome to Empowered by Women. My name is Crystal Drogrep. I'm the founder of Empowered by Women, which is an extension of Book of Bijou. I created this platform for incredible women in business to come and share their stories. I love getting to know the people behind the brands, sharing their stories, and hopefully utilizing those stories to inspire all of you on your entrepreneurial journeys as well. Today, we have an incredible guest, Vickie Johnson, who is the host of the I Am Fearless podcast. We actually got to know each other because she allowed me to be a guest on her podcast. And since then, I've been listening to all of her episodes, really getting to know her story, getting to know her. And she's an incredible woman, and you're going to definitely want to tune into this. Before we get into the episode, I just want to remind everyone that we did recently launch our women-owned small business directory, which can be found on www.empoweredbywomen.com. So definitely check that out when you get the chance. But let's get back to why we are here today. And that is to chat with the incredible Vickie. So Vickie, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Crystal, for having me. It is a pleasure to see you again.
Always. You are just such a light. So I'm so excited to be chatting with you. I'm so excited to be sharing your story. It is a good one. We're going to get into it in a little bit, folks, but there was one particular episode that I definitely want to dive into that was on her podcast. But literally, right after I listened to it, I was like, I messaged her like immediately, like, oh my God, I just listened to this and your story is incredible and you are such an inspiration. So, seriously, so honored to have you today.
Oh my gosh, I just got chills. Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. It's not easy being vulnerable, but I think it's definitely about stepping into your power, and you take your power back when you are vulnerable, you know?
Absolutely. It's not easy at all. But yes, girl, take that power back. So I Am Fearless podcast, the name for one is already so powerful, but give us some background information. Why the podcast? How'd you get started? And what is the story behind it?
Okay, so in 2022, at the beginning of 2022, actually, oh my gosh, like maybe a year to today's date, I I lost my aunt, and then 4 months later, I lost my cousin, and then a couple months after that, I found out that I was pregnant, and then ended up miscarrying, and so I just was experiencing loss after loss after loss, and then I ended up feeling lost and alone and just isolated and so one day I just picked up my laptop and I just wanted to talk. I felt like I just needed to get so much out of me. And so August 2nd actually is when I did an episode just by myself, and I was just talking, and it was mostly about the pain that I was experiencing because I was just seeking connection. Um, and I've always kind of been afraid to put myself out there. I've owned businesses, but I've mostly been in the background, never in the forefront. I never wanted to be the face of my business. And that was fear that was holding me back. It was fear of me being judged. It was fear of me being rejected. And so I I just felt like life was too short for me to be afraid of anything anymore. And I said, you know what? Forget it. I am fearless. I'm fearless. I'm going to step into this. And you know, when I say the name of the podcast, and I say it all the time, right? You really do become that way. I've started to notice that, like, I'm doing things that terrify me all the time. But I think it's from me always saying, like, I am fearless, I am fearless, I am fearless. So that's where it was birthed from. It was birthed from a place of grief, and it eventually evolved into something. And because what it was is that when I first started it, I was talking about my pain, and I didn't want to continue to talk about everything that I was going through and talk about my personal life like that. I really wanted to make it more positive, because overall I feel like I'm a really positive person, and so I wanted to feed that back into the world. And so I kind of changed it and identified a niche, and it's about entrepreneurs. I like to say that we are feeding the entrepreneurial spirit every Wednesday through our episodes. So yeah.
I love that. And that spirit is hungry.
That's hungry.
So why the podcast of all avenues for you to kind of step out of the shadows and into the light? Like, why specifically the root of the podcast?
Crystal, can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Before I started I Am Fearless, I've never listened to a podcast.
Podcast. I don't know what that is, but we're gonna start one. Sounds cool.
Literally, I never even heard one. So when I started recording, I was like, oh, okay. And then I started listening to other people's podcasts and I was like, this is not what everybody else is doing. Like my whole monologue of and so I switched it up, but I had no idea. And I literally, I just felt called to just get it out. And I wanted to, and I at first I did it, I was recording myself because I just wanted to hear myself. And then I actually ended up sharing it with like close family and friends. And they were like, Vickie, this is really good. You should do another one. And then that's when I started doing it again. But I I actually just kind of
Had a dream about it one day, and you were like, "All right, whatever that means."
I am
I love it.
fearless.
I love it. And you mentioned, doing it like for connection, and it
Mm-hmm.
started with you just wanting to get it off your chest. It sounded like it was almost like an oral journal, which I
Yes.
love. Like that was the kind of start of it. But then it turned into like a place of connection, which I absolutely agree with. Like being able to have guests on your podcast, it is definitely more than just like, this is just my job. Like you really do get to connect with people and get to know them on such a deeper and more genuine level. And that's something that I love as well. So let's get the business stuff um, out of the way first. So what are the biggest obstacles you've had so far with starting your podcast?
Oh, I would say keeping organized and scheduling. Like, since I've started, the first episode was November 2nd. I have had so many people that want to be a guest. And so just kind of getting those standard operating procedures in order, that's been a challenge for me because I I didn't really know what I was doing. I have a background in management and things like that, and I have a background in business. But yeah, I would just say like putting it all together and being consistent has been the biggest obstacle
And you're dropping episodes every week, right?
every week.
Yep, that's a lot. Are you doing anything else also? Do you work elsewhere?
So, so you know what's okay. So from I Am Fearless, I was I had gone to this convention and I met this really amazing woman who has a dance studio in Irving. She has over 400 students. And she actually asked me to help her plan networking events. So now I'm doing event coordinating. And from podcasting, it's like, and it's just brought on, the podcast has brought on other opportunities. But no, initially it was just the podcast. I was just pouring everything into it. And after connecting with other people, we just kind of figured out how we could work with each other, how we could collab. And so yeah, it's brought on other opportunities. So now I'm doing event coordinating too.
That's amazing. And it really is, it's so cool, like all of these doors that start to open, like once you start living a path that feels right for you, right?
Absolutely. And I think what it is that even when you don't know exactly how to do it or even how to start, it'll come to you. You just have to start. And then in your starting it, if other opportunities come, then you if it's agreeable with your spirit, then you go that direction, because you've already started on the right path to begin with. So whatever comes your way, it's meant for you.
Absolutely. So what about like editing and all that? Have you had any experience like editing videos at all?
No. And you know what? Like, okay, so I'm the type of person that I don't even like to update my iPhone.
Oh yeah, neither. Well, I don't have an iPhone, but I don't like to update my phone.
I'm not tech savvy at all. And so as far as editing is concerned, it's been trial and error. I think that would be an obstacle that I probably should mention. But I actually have actually have a producer that I met, who was an Uber driver, and he was just like, he's like, oh, I just do this on the side, but I actually do videos. And I was like, I have a podcast, I need help. And I'm okay. So I'm not going to try and turn this into a religious talk, but it really is God, because I asked God, to help me. I asked God to help me through this painful experiences that I was having, and then it led me to the podcast, and I asked God for help with my videos, because I edited one video and it took me like 8 hours, and I was like, I can't do this. God help me. And I'm like, literally like, an Uber driver picked me up, and I get in the car with him. We start talking, and he tells me he's a producer, and so he's been producing every single one of my videos, since then. It really just kind of all has started kind of coming together. It's amazing, really.
You're doing amazing. And
It,
it seemed like it's come together so great. You were talking about like how like I didn't know what I was doing, but it seems like your ducks are in a row. Like when I was a guest on your podcast, you had everything lined up, all your emails. So it looks like you're doing amazing. How do you feel about the people that say like, well, podcasts are so it's like so saturated. Everyone has a podcast. Does that affect you at all?
you know what? No, because I think that every individual has something to offer, right? Like we all have something in us that we can give to the world. And so no, I think that there's abundance and room for everybody, because my audience, they may connect with me more so than they connect with another person, and but then sometimes whatever topics that that person is talking about, they may connect more with them. There's room for it, I feel, but no, I think that there's room for all of us here in this podcast arena.
100%. I agree. And it's really, the long-term game, right? Like, well, why are you doing it to begin with? So are you just trying to find something that's like going to make you rich in a year and then you're going to quit podcasting? Because you probably, I mean, a lot of podcasts I'm sure are like that, right? And they're very, very short-lived. But, for me at least, I'm doing it with, impact in mind. Like I want to impact others that are also on their entrepreneurial journey. I want to inspire others. I want to share the stories of all these incredible women. And with you, you're finding connection, you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable and you're giving yourself that space. So I think there's definitely a lot more to it for us at least. And I definitely see us sticking around for the long term.
And you know what, Crystal, too, to just add to what you were saying, I think that, well, I just want to mention that this is the first business that I've started that I was not concerned about the money. I did it so that it could feed me in a different way, not financially, but like spiritually, and like it helps me. Like even talking with you, like I always get inspired after I sit and talk with guests. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, what they're doing is so cool. They're doing it. They haven't quit. I'm not going to quit. So as much as it is something that I'm doing for everybody else, it's really servicing me too.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with everything you just said. I am the same way. Like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's like me and my business, me working on my business is a form of self-love for me because it's something that I'm passionate about. It's something that is filling my cup because it is so inspiring to be around the women that I'm around. So I 100% get everything that you just said. Okay, so now I do want to go to that episode. What was the episode called?
It was called, I don't remember. It was some, it's just me.
The things that have shaped me or something
Oh,
like that.
things that have shaped me. Yes, some of the things that have shaped me. My name is Vickie, and these are the things that have shaped me. That was the name of the episode.
Yeah. So this episode on the I Am Fearless podcast is what like I don't know. I was just like in a trance or something when I was listening to it. And like you tugged at my heartstrings, but I also felt like such a profound and like deeper connection with you after listening to that. And at the end, when you were like, now we're friends, we're locked in for life, I was like, girl, I feel it. That's why I sent you that message. But you got like real and real vulnerable. And as you mentioned, like it's hard to be vulnerable. So was it always the plan to like dive that deep into your story and just lay it all out there for the world?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But you know what? So I mentioned earlier about taking my power back, right? Like stepping into my power. And I actually, like, right now I'm going through a separation with my youngest child's father. And I'm just gonna keep it real. He had kind of put me in the position to where I needed to tell on myself, because if I didn't tell on myself, then he was going to tell on me, and I was not going to live in fear. I was not going to live in fear of what somebody else was going to potentially do to, maybe damage my reputation or whatever business that I was building. And and I and I even thought, I was like, with me saying some of the things that I'm saying on here, talking about, like, you know, like drug abuse and alcohol abuse and things like that. I'm like, some of these people that I get on my show, they are super professional. And they may not want to be a part of I Am Fearless anymore. But if that's the case, then it is what it is. That you're not a part of my tribe, and that's okay. But I think that one of the biggest lessons that I'm learning in doing this podcast is that you have to be authentic. You have to be yourself. You can't let outside factors determine who you are and who you want to portray yourself to be. And so that was me taking my power back. And I just wanted to get it out there. And before I actually aired that episode, I had to have a conversation with my kids, because I have two teenage daughters. Well, actually, now she's 20. I have a 20-year-old and a 15-year-old daughter, and they completely understand what's going on. But I just needed to clear the air. And you know what? I feel lighter and I feel better for it.
Yeah, I could tell when I was listening to it that that had been, well, all of the things that you laid out have just been weighing on you for quite some time. So, if we can give a little background to the listeners, if you're okay with me, kind of bringing some other things up, but basically in the episode, she took it back. So when she was a child and she was living in, this small town where everyone knew everything about you, all your business, anytime you stepped out of the line. And that's why she kind of became accustomed to, wanting to not be in the spotlight. And she talks about, drug abuse, as she just mentioned, nightlife, or she has multiple children and she has different fathers for some of those children. And she just really opened it up. And you mentioned how you felt like you were a statistic.
Yeah.
And when you said that, it weighed down on me, because for you to feel that way and have that like define you, your past doesn't define you. Like, yes, those things helped shape you to who you are today, to this incredible, powerful, brave, independent woman, right? But your past doesn't define you. And you are, like you said, taking your power back and taking all those steps to redefine what your future looks like and who Vickie is. And I definitely do not think you are a statistic. I think you are an exception to the statistic. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I and when I say, like, I'm a statistic, right? Statistically speaking, I grew up prior to me moving to that small town in Oklahoma. I was an inner city kid. We lived really close to downtown. I saw a lot of crime. I saw a lot of violence. My mother had drug issues. I had an absent father. Later on in life, I grew up and I have three kids, and by three different men. And so it's like all of these things, right, that are supposed to add up against you. And I feel like that, even though those things have happened in my life, you're absolutely right. I've defeated them, and I'm proud of myself for that. And I think that it's almost like you have to embrace the not so beautiful parts of yourself, or what the world doesn't think is so beautiful, um, in order for you to really realize how strong and how capable you are. And I think that that's what it did. Like like whenever I lay it out like that, I'm like, dang, like, okay, like I am that girl. And sometimes we have to tell ourselves that, and, and, and it needs to come from you and not anybody else, you know?
And all of this, all of that you've dealt with, and all of the loss that you've had to experience in your life, and it's a lot, but it will absolutely fuel the passion that you have now, and it's already showing how much love and emotion that you're putting into things. It seems like everything's being stacked against you, but it's almost like now it's like it's setting you up for success, because
Yes.
all of those little things are like a little bit more of a push, a little bit more of a push, and now it's pushing you towards success. So how tell us about like that transition for you, mentally speaking, like of no longer wanting to be in the shadows and hide who you are, and you're now like, let me tell my story, let me be who I am, let the world see.
I think I'm still in the process of transitioning because I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I get a little freaked out. Sometimes I don't know who's gonna see this. I don't know what they're gonna think. I don't know, but uh it's day by day, right? And as new things come up, like I said, I'm now in a position now to where if something scares me, I'm going towards it. Because I really feel like that all of those things that I just mentioned, they helped me to grow. They helped me to get to this point. And I have a friend, she always says, things aren't happening to me, they're happening for me. And it's absolutely true. So I've started to kind of reprogram my thinking to like not so much a victim mentality, but more so like this is going to help me. This is whatever difficulty I'm facing right now, it is to prepare me for something later. And so it's all about restructuring the way that I receive difficulties or challenges.
Have you done any like gone to any like professionals? Like, do you do therapy? Like, do you do meditation? What are some of your
Girl,
methods of trying to work through it all?
I've been in therapy for like forever. No, like no, seriously. I think I would say I've been in therapy on and off for maybe 10 years, 10 years on and off of therapy. Because the thing is that life doesn't stop lifing, right? And even though I may have a lot of um things in my past that I had to deal with, there's still things that are coming up for me in my future that I'm going to have to learn how to handle, and I need to make sure that I'm equipped to handle them, right? And therapy just gives you the tools to better handle difficult situations. I meditate, I hike, I exercise, I try to eat right, because all of those things too help me to stay mentally balanced and focused and present. Because I think that a part of the challenge in overcoming your past is not reliving it in your head over and over again. You really have to like let it go. Take the lesson and leave it alone, because all we have right now is the present moment. And so like I like to engage in things that really require me to be present. So that's super helpful. And meditation is a great practice to help with being present and staying focused.
Do you still have those moments where everything kind of rushes back and overwhelms you, and you are kind of living in the past again? And what do you do when that happens?
Absolutely. So I am a huge fan of Joe Dispenza. And one thing that he says to do, and I also have this thing that I say, but one thing that he says to do is that anytime something pops into your head from the past, just change. And I literally first I used to say change, I would say it out loud, but now I just say it to myself. And then another thing I say to myself is I was not in control of my past then, but I'm in control, or I'm not in control, or how do I say it? I say I wasn't in control of my past then, but I am in control of my present right now. So like all I can do is just focus on what's right in front of me. Because who I was in my past is not who I am right now. So handle those situations the same. So I try to teach, I try to be kind with myself and be gentle and forgiving with myself. So that way I can continue to progress.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you absolutely have to have grace with yourself and let go of those things that you can't control.
Yeah.
But, all the things that you can control, let's speak into that. You were talking about how you're in this current transition of, your relationship now. So you mentioned in that particular episode that, you were all in these relationships where people were defining you. So what was
Mm.
kind of that pivotal moment that you were like, you know what? Nobody's going to define me anymore. I will live a life that is who I am, and I will define that for myself.
I, ooh, that's tough because, I think that with each relationship that I was in, I would notice it, right? Like I'm like after I would separate from them, I'd be like, I really wasn't even myself. And then that's kind of when you look back at the old relationships you were in and you're like, why was I even with this person? because I really wasn't even being myself, I guess. And so I think that that in itself is also a process because we're always evolving and changing. And so as I moved on to different relationships, I would evolve and change and then but evolution doesn't stop, right? It's continuous. And I think that so we all grow at different rates. And so that's kind of hard to say because I think I think sometimes it would take for me to separate from them to identify that I've been like conforming myself to them or to conforming myself to whatever they liked, and not honoring who I really am. I think that as women, we are so used to sacrificing um, what our dreams and what we want to do to where I think that I started to believe that that's what I was supposed to do. Like as a woman, like I was supposed to be whoever's wife or whoever's girlfriend or and be and support them and I'm like damn it, it's time for me, it's my time. And I think that I've done it so long and I've done it so often and I'm recognizing that it's a pattern that I've been doing. And so I guess you asked about the pivotal point. It was recent. I had just had enough. And you know what, I think it happened. Oh my gosh, I'm discovering things as I'm talking to you. I think
I
it
love it.
happened after all of that loss I experienced to where I really just said, F this, no more. I think that's when it clicked with me. Like life is too short for me to be anybody else but me. And I had had enough. Yeah.
Well,
This is
I'm
like
glad you
therapy.
had enough. I can feel the conviction in your voice when you say it, and I love it. So, what is the future looking like for Vickie Johnson?
Oh my gosh. You know what? I don't, you know what? I'm not sure, but I'm excited about it. And I think that as long as I continue to listen to my deep intuition and my inner guidance, that whatever is next for me is meant for me. And I really haven't defined it yet, but um, I know that it's going to be good because I'm being me. I'm being my truest, most authentic self. So I know it should be good, you know?
I think it's going to be amazing. And I think you deserve it. You deserve all of the amazing things that are coming to you because you really do radiate such a positive and energetic and uplifting light. And I can see big things for you.
Thank you.
All right. So before we get all set up and start crying,
I know.
where can everyone find you in your podcast, Vickie?
Okay, so you guys can find me at www.iamfearlesspodcast.com. On Instagram, it is I Am Fearless Podcast. On Facebook, don't judge me. I only have like 2 friends. I'm looking for more, but it's I Am Fearless Radio on Facebook.
Love it. Everyone definitely tune in, especially listen to that episode because you'll be locked in with Vickie for life and we can all be friends here. That's what we want. We just want a giant community of amazing people that just love each other and uplift each other. That is really our goal. So again, if you guys are watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast platform, Thank you so, so much for tuning in. Vickie, as always, you are incredible and so inspiring, and I'm so honored to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me. Crystal, you're amazing. Keep doing what you're doing.